So yes, I temporarily have CBS All Access because I figured somebody's going to give away Picard, so I better watch it. Yeah, I'll do Discovery as well, I guess. Sure. I'll also buy the Blu-rays at the end of the run. But yeah, with all the other Star Trek going on, I should probably have just 2 shows. So I guess it's enough. This is a review of Star Trek Picard Remembrance. Pilot episode of Star Trek Picard aired today. It is Thursday, the 23rd of January 2020. And now we're back in the prime timeline. Well, sort of. There's no way to do this review without spoilers. Plot spoilers. So, once you get spoiled, plot-wise, then, no, until you've seen it. Yeah. There will be no footage from it, and also note that, because CBS would immediately flag the channel. And also that the channel is not for children under the age of 18, even though there's nothing bad on the channel. This is a review of Star Trek Picard. What were the first thoughts of this the spin-off of the Prime Universe? This sort of a thing. It's hard to say exactly what it is yet, in terms of being just the first 45 minutes of the pilot. They didn't show the second half of the episode, which is weird. Sure, it's fine. Very reminiscent of the Cillian saga, actually. Especially the Lelantos version of it. The Pathfinder. Very much like that, which the next Cillian collection is very similar to that as well. That doesn't mean anything to you guys, but it's our current Kat and Cards, Brown and Yeager, Cillian Starship Locations, a parody of Star Trek, and a parody of the Journal, which is ongoing. The Journal will never be released though, because it's private, so we can't. So yes, the Journal is back this month, a week ago. So there's a Locations to Starship Locations. And Picard is, if you've seen my fan film that we did with Mark's Cards, or John, you'll take note that fan film took place in 2288, about a year after the supernova, and on a ship called the Chimera, and the Enterprise E, and other ships. It isn't necessarily inconsistent with the Picard show, actually. It actually works, because maybe he retired immediately after the events of Chimera. Isn't consistent in the fan film book series, because it continued after that for a little while, with him reappearing in 2291, and then a little bit in 2292 or 3, but then not at all after that. Riker did, but not Picard. In 2294, Riker reappeared. Riker and Troy. They don't have children in the Cillian space universe. They're under a different name anyways, Clerk and Pickerly. Anyway, I'm going on about the fan film, and it should be going on about Picard, but they're connected. There's a connection, because these guys apparently have watched the evolution of Cillian space, and like many Star Trek series before, they're cribbing from it. So yeah, even though they couldn't know us personally, they are definitely, and we're flattered, but yes, we had nothing to do with writing Kiva Goldsmith's Picard show, but there's all kinds of, there's spoilers in this. Okay, the story begins the same way all good things ended, in a way. It does begin on the Enterprise, but it's a dream. I'm gonna ignore all the dreams, kind of, or some of them. It ends with a dream on the Enterprise D, which looks different, somewhat. It's shinier. There's a there's Picard and Data are playing cards, and he's wearing a uniform from Nemesis. Should be wearing a uniform from season 1 of one of the seasons of TNG, possibly the final one. He wouldn't be wearing a Nemesis uniform, but it's a dream, so maybe he remembers him that way. That's the scene they changed, whereas I didn't change the other scene with the painting out in the field. It was another dream. The technology appears to be only slightly advanced of that of Discovery. Because it's similar. Although the track yards people nitpicking about the shuttlecraft, you don't really see it in the pilot. It goes by so fast that you oh well. Yeah, so you don't really notice it. The Picard has a dog named Number One. Not sure if it's a boy or a girl. They keep saying she, but then it's he. He's got Romulans as his waitstaff, I guess, and friends, house companions, I guess, but waitstaff on Chateau Picard. He's dreaming Data. He has another dream of Data's painting, daughter. Clue into what's going on. It's not Riker's daughter. Well, Data had a daughter, Lal, and apparently this is sort of a pseudo copy thing. It's different than the Cillian stories in that and different from Star Trek Countdown as well. The original Countdown from 2009. In that Data does not become B4 does not become Data and become a captain. In this version, B4 is broken and horribly mutilated, decimated on the planet. At one point, the Daystrom Institute. Maddox is mentioned though. So there's all these different things going on. There's a daughter thing. I'm not going to make it a linear review here. I'm just saying my thoughts on whether Picard being a lot like the fan stuff that we've been doing over the years. The year is still kind of unclear in the story. They hint that it's the anniversary of an attack on Mars by the Synthoids, the synths, the Cylons. I mean synths. It's totally they're ripping off. And Mars is on fire somehow. The Cylons. Yeah, they're thinking a new BSG. It's a lot of new BSG here. Daj and Saj, they both look like oddly enough, not Six. They look like the girl from Firefly. They look kind of like Summer Glau running around fighting stuff. There's got a little Firefly thrown in there. It's kind of nice. The bearded Romulan guy looks kind of like Captain Obvious, and then they got the other guy that looks like Spock from the other timeline with a beard. The other dude on the Borg cube prison ship thing. And although the stills from that make it look like it's because you can pause the stills to see what's on the screen to see what it looks like. It's different in the movie version, TV version. They've changed some stuff around. You don't really see that background that says, oh, it's been such and such days since the last assimilation. That's not visible in the shot. At least not in the first part. First episode doesn't have 7 of 9 yet, or Riker yet. Assume that's the next episode. So the pilot is misleading in that they don't really... The pilot kind of shows the commercial that happened the first time they aired a commercial for it. With the fight on the roof and stuff. The Trek Yards people guessed correctly, as well as Irish Trekkie, that it looks like the butt-kicking android chick, who's clearly an android, it's really obvious, blows up. The bad guys fight her, and she goes poof. Doesn't explain how Picard survives the android chick. I won't give away everything that's going on, because... So there are these two twin girls, which is right out of Cillian space, and out of BSG. But it's out of Cillian space because the twin blonde girls, this is a brunette one, raven-haired one, but twin blonde girls are the Tina and Elijah, Elijah, from Silly Trek are something we thought of because we knew at high school and in junior high, twin blonde girls who were both, Chris and Libby, that were both involved in the original role-playing game. So they're copying that blatantly from, not from the other thing, they've read the Cillian thing. So, yeah. They have a cameo in the 2388 movie. Fan film that was released in September. In the background, they're in the bar scene. Yeah, so as action figures. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. And yeah, so yeah, it's bizarre. And actually, you could kind of say that the character of Tabby is actually Libby from one of those girls, one of the twins, and she's playing Tabby as Lieutenant Yar, basically, as a Romulan, in the Cillian story. I keep going back to that because it's very similar. So there's Romulans in my story. There's a Romulan doctor, and a Romulan intern. I mean, an intern and a Klingon doctor, and the supernova. It's part of that story. They're very, very parallel to it. So it's like, yeah, eerie that they're similar. So we know stuff, and they know stuff, and there's this pollination going on between the two. Picard needs to go on this the quest to find out what the painting means because he dreams about the painting after Dodge leaves. Dodge is the girl with the brown hair, right? Black hair. She leaves. He goes to the archives room and he meets up with a holographic hologram, one of those holo characters, looking for things. They've apparently banished synthoids because of the attack on Mars, even though it doesn't make sense if it was only some of them. Don't they have 3 levels of robotics? Yeah, don't they have that? Isn't it Asimov? I mean, the guy's called a positronic brain. Apparently, some of Maddox's people were defective. Maddox built some robots he wasn't supposed to, basically, and some of them rebelled. Basically, that's the plot. They tried to blow up Mars. In Children of Mars, which was a short trek, there was also a short trek that dealt with a guy eating tribbles, apparently. Oh, it's just right out of the Cillian saga. There's a joke in there which is just weird. It's like, how we thought it would be the grossest thing ever in high school is a guy eating tribbles. So we're like, what if the Klingon, what if Worf was eating tribbles? We put that in the story, and it's in the story. It's in the Cillian stories, and they've only been online for a short time, but apparently they're reading them over there at Paramount, and they're like, oh yeah, let's put that in there. Let's have a guy that eats tribbles. Like, it was a joke. He didn't actually do it in the Silly Trek version. He was like, you gross. It was a joke. Yeah, it's like nobody would eat a tribble. It's too fuzzy. Anyway, but yeah, that was the trouble with Edward. That was that one. So here we are with Access. God. But here we are with this other story. I'm rambling on about Picard because, yes, I don't really want to spoil too much of it. But yeah, we have this strange girl that's obviously a twin, obviously an android. So there's probably another one, if not probably 3 or 4. But this is a twin. She gets attacked by these bad guys. At first, she gets attacked by the bad guys in her boyfriend's apartment. Her boyfriend is an alien from Discovery, and he's like a space alien. He gets Darginian or something. He gets killed. She goes all she goes like River Tam, basically. She turns into River Tam. She gets activated and kills the bad guys. And then later on, she escapes. She finds Picard in another town where the archives are, and she fights the bad guys there too. There's a scene where she with Picard. Picard figures out who she is. So he's trying to convince her that she's actually the daughter of Data. Spoiler. It must be Lal, or some version of Lal created a new version of Lal. That's kind of cool from TNG. That she's actually in this movie, in the show. So it's a sequel to that one. Yeah, Data's daughter episode. Also, we have and Maddox and her mother gives it away because her mother indicates that she already knows about Picard, and she tells her the warning to go find him and escape the bad guys. Summarily, they're attacked on a rooftop and they have a battle, and she explodes after beating up the bad guys. And somehow Picard gets home, and no one's around. Somehow he's home. These jumps from one scene to another are kind of confusing. They kind of have to explain how they get out of those situations a little bit. Because if you it's show and not tell, you have to show it a little bit. And when you're writing a story, you have to say, okay, how did you get rescued back to the chateau without anyone saying anything? At least have, like, the security guys show up and say, oh, bring him back to the house or something. Medical sick bay or whatever. That's got to be in there. You can't just do a story without the sick bay in there. It doesn't make sense. You have to do that. That's a little bit of a plot hole. You got to fix that. They figure out, he goes to the Daysum Institute, meets the blonde lady that's one of the main characters, who looks kind of like, it looks like Chris, or Libby, one of the twins. One of the twins is in the movie, so she's there, and and she's like, oh yeah, she's a twin. No, they hint at this. That's I don't know if the blonde lady's a twin, but she's clearly the Elysian is in this story. Sure, why not? It's also a name for a beer, incidentally. She was originally the Libyan because she was Libby, because that was silly because it was the 80s. But then it became the Elysian and the Cillian version because we really didn't want to use the real name, so the Cillian version. This version, she is called something else. Let's see. Goes to the Daysum Institute. I thought like a rundown of this one. Yeah. So Paris. Yes, Agnira Girali. Agnia Jalali, yeah. Who looks like what would happen if who looks like the Wesian as a girl, or yeah. So yeah, she's basically Chris. She isn't really, but she is. She's like her daughter, not really. But then they figure out that Zal and not Lao, Daj and Saj are twin sisters, and Saj is on the Romulan prison ship. Of course, there's a prison ship. There's got to be a prison ship. And the Romulan prison ship is clearly a Borg cube. Not just from the preview, but they back off and they're showing that, ooh, big reveal. Well, they did show some show not tell there, but the music is odd, so it doesn't quite match. They're trying to do the Chimera theme, kind of. And, do they realize my fan film is not official? I don't think they do. Why don't they just hire us? Like John saw too, Mark Scott saw too. Just hire us. We'll do it. We'll work for this show. We'll do Picard. Oh, what is weird though is that they have a newscaster setting Picard at one point. Why would they have a news team? It's the future in like subspace and whatever. Why would they have a Fox like annoying news team thing? Lady that is clearly supposed to be the Red Angel lady. No, she's not, but she's acting like her. And that didn't make much sense. I mean, the Red Angel turns out to be what Rem doing all that stuff, but then it's her mom. That didn't make sense either. Yeah. So yeah, and Discovery is kind of a mess, but we're still watching it. There's some. So if this is like 2397 roughly in the story, 10th anniversary of Romulan supernova in the story, that would be now. But then it wouldn't be 14 years after he left Starfleet. So there's like this weird disparity. The only way it works is if the supernova happened earlier than 2387, but in this fandom-powered memory thing, it says 2387. So it's just 2399 from 2387. Just do the math. It's 12 years. It's not 14. 14 years since you left Starfleet. So when does Star Trek Picard take place? Well, maybe the Cillian version will straighten that out. So far, the Cillian version now, currently, is 2396. So it's a few years before Picard. But racing toward it rapidly. probably Cillian Collective Book 6. This is Book 5 we're working on. Book 6 will be set in the Picard timeline. So it'll be a couple years later set in the Picard timeline. It isn't yet. Or but it'll be called the Lucky Clerk timeline, though, because in our version we had to change the names so that we wouldn't get in trouble with CBS. Lucky Clerk timeline, yes. Yeah. Also, I think there's something about Picard and something about Riker and Troy possibly having like either a kid or adopted or help or something. I don't know when the Titan happened or if it happened. Yeah, this is only 10 years later, so it's supposed to be 20 years after the events of Star Trek Nemesis. Star Trek Nemesis took place 18 years ago in 2379. So 2399 would be 20 years later. 14 years before 2399 would only be 2385. So did the supernova explode early, or did they know about it, or I don't know, how did it wreck the local universe and rescuing Romulans and Armada and stuff? And there was an Armada, it was attacked. Was there a... How does Mars on fire? It's cold there, isn't it? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, why don't they just let the atmosphere freeze again? It's Mars. Yeah, why does there have to be like a weird sort of thing going on? Yeah, but it's funny, there are twins in it. There are twins in Silly Trek. Silly in Space is about twins. There are not just the girl twins. There's a twin of me there. There's the Cal Hazel character as also Kal Kat. There's Mark Karts as John Holter. He's got like a Lantos. There's clones of Fennell is Bertham. Fennell is Bertham Vu. There's clones everywhere. There's two Jodies. There's maybe more. There's two Julies. There's two Jennifers. There's two everything. There's 3 or 4 clones of everybody. There might even be a third Kal Cassidy in Silly in Space. So there are clones everywhere. So maybe they're robots or androids. Yeah, in Silly Trek, Silly in Space. So this is a review of Picard, and I keep going back to the fan film just because it's like, well, it's similar. I had to say about the fan film that it's a paint by number. I mean, to say about the Picard show so far, it's a very rambly sort of thing. I'm cutting back to the chateau a lot, showing that the house with transitions being weird. That's a drawback. But I'm assuming that they will fix that later. They did that with Discovery as well. With the switching back and forth. Looks like they filmed this in Napa or something. They might have. But yeah, Remembrance is the title of this episode. Oh, and it's not about Bruce Maddox is mentioned. He was the guy that wanted to steal Data's mind or whatever, and trap him. But now he's decided to make like android copies from positronic like cells or something. Or maybe he's involved in the Mars invasion thing or something. Yeah, it was only part 1 of 2, so it's kind of confusing. But ultimately, we're not directly involved in the Picard show, although we certainly could be, because they are totally like tinfoil hat, like reading like whole cloth like scenes from Silly in Space. Picard finds his clone, then we'll we think okay, they're totally they haven't done that, but maybe they will. That said, Patrick Stewart is like 78 years old. And his character was born in 2305, which means that if this is 2399, as it's indicated in the story, even though that's slightly off, it should be either 2387 or the 2399, let's say. Now, they didn't say 10th anniversary of the attack, they said anniversary. He should be well over 90. He should be 92, roughly. 94 even. 94, because 2305 and 2399. 94. So he's old. Very, very, very old. He's not going to be doing any, like, fighting and stuff. It'd be kind of ridiculous. Now I'm getting towards you with my walker. And I'm coming for you, Jean-Luc. Oh. Now Riker and Troy are in their late 60s. Because it's 32 years since Next Generation. It's been a while. When TNG started, cast playing our role-playing game back to where we were teenagers in high school. It was a high school and a junior high, so we were in high school, and some of them junior high, and the Chris and Libby, the twins, and all that. And Henry and everyone else, and John, Jim and Tim, and Jamie, and this guy, who was the antagonist, years ago in the 80s. Before the Borg, we thought of the Borg. We were like, oh, a Terminator-like zombie dude show up because Jamie is annoying. So Jamie's the Terminator Borg guy. And in effect, we made him cool, but he wasn't supposed to be. I thought of the Borg within weeks of that. There was even the bizarre scene to the point of the apple being tossed up and down. That was literally on Star Trek the next week. It's like on the TNG episode. It's like John just tossing an apple, like random video. The thing it is possible that a lot of that stuff was great minds think alike. I mean, it couldn't be like psychic powers, that doesn't exist. But it's interesting that in fact there's a new HBO show that's the Avenue 5 that's got a Captain Clark or Colonel Clark or Captain Clark, which is right out of, well, they figure with that they probably saw Starcrackers. They probably watched it, as well as the Orville as Starcracker. It basically is. Sure. Yeah, we're all on the same page. So we tend to write storybooks and fan films and written in print and not film them so much. Usually our fan stuff is more Transformers and Robotech. And so we did the Gamera thing after 13 years to make. The next one's not going to take that long. The action figures out again. Do another one. But since the fan film is a fan film and they've changed some events and people and characters around, it doesn't need to necessarily follow the Star Trek. It can do its own thing and just kind of follow the Star Trek. It can be a different timeline. That's what some of these guys don't figure on. This could be a different timeline. I think Picard's show is one of the timelines that was seen in Parallels, one of the slightly darker one, but not the mirror universe. It's another timeline. It's not Prime. It's just sort of Prime. He's basically in Cillian space. He's probably in the Pathfinder saga somewhere, which is hilarious. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. So the Pathfinder saga, and it's cool that they all got back together because I got to see many of the TNG cast at the convention in 2016, and they were doing a big thing in it. I got to see the 2017, the 30th anniversary, it's 2017, 30th anniversary thing of TNG, and Picard wasn't there, Stewart wasn't there, but Shatner was there in his place. Everyone else was there, just not Shatner. I don't think Will Wheaton was there either, the convention, but everyone else was. Dr. Crusher and Troy and Riker, Denise Crosby, Tasha Yar, and all that. So it's cool that they could get some of them to come back only a couple of years later and do something with the TNG cast, because they're probably not going to do any more movies, I wouldn't think. Although they probably should. They could. Understand that they wanted to do a Uhura one, but with the Borg, but then it ended up being this. So they ended up not using Uhura. So it would have been a little weird. Young Picard meets Uhura. That would have been strange. Wouldn't have worked. Yeah. But they were probably thinking, well, just have Zoe Sandal show up. Then that really wouldn't make any sense. See, what happened is we had to point out, over there, I had to point out to Alex Kurtzman that there were 78 years between the original Star Trek and TNG. They had the same problem that Mark Scarts did way back in junior high when he thought they were the same year. They were just slightly later, 30 years later or something. But no, the next generation is actually 78 years later. It's over a generation and then some. They're literally after 78 years later. It's almost 80 years later. It's almost like, it's almost 3 generations later. Next generation is nowhere near Kirk and Spock. In order for them to meet, they'd have to be really long-lived, which they established in some episodes. And they probably had to sit through them. The Trek Core keeps mentioning all the Picard books they should watch before watching this. Don't bother. The Countdown comics, the new ones, just watch those. I'll read those. That explains the Armada and all that. The Humanitarian Armada. Yeah. That particular line is not in here. The line where she says you led the greatest American humanitarian armada in history, that line is not said like that in this. It's in like that in the trailer to hide the fact that there's an incident that happened with the Armada. I won't give that away. But if you've seen Children of Mars, you have already seen it. So, short treks I've been watching. They're not that good. Short treks, just sure. It works, I guess. It's too soon to tell. It's funny that B4's positronic net thing didn't work, and that was actually B4 in the covered thing. It was all mutilated. It didn't work. Thought he was like an evil Romulan clone of him anyway. Probably wouldn't have. Is that how the synths attacked? As they had Romulan like chips in them or something? Because that'd be kind of messed up. Also, they have to explain how a supernova in one star system could blow up a bunch of other star systems and render the Romulan Empire moot. How does that work? It doesn't really work. If it was silly Trek, though, if it was silly in space, where your thoughts create reality and manifest reality, and where no one really dies, they get reincarnated and recreated somewhere else, and people can go in and out as they please, or do what they please, and it's almost Fantasy Island, but it always ends up like a Fantasy Island episode. It always ends up with, they have to leave the planet because eventually the fantasy goes wrong. Somebody gets humiliated and they have to leave. It's usually the plot of a Cillian story. And there are collections of short stories. And because we really wanted to be on Star Trek New Voyages, they wouldn't let us. So we wrote our own over the last 20 years. So I published all of those. Yeah, just recently I edited them. I had the editor edit them. And like, oh my goodness, there's some errors in here. In fact, I found some in the 4th last night. So I better fix that. Thankfully, it is Amazon online, and we can do that without it because it's online. It's not. There are no printed copies of it. It's all digital. I can go back and edit the script and change it because I can just edit it, change it. It's not printed, so there's no physical copy. There could be, but we want to make sure they're really good before we do any physical copies. They're all online, so you can check those out. Amazon.com, Cillian Space, Cillian Saga Collective, Cillian Collective is a Star Trek parody. It's our parody. We also did Space Vanguards and Canary Space and Spacetime Eye, all serialized. So there's a lot of stuff out there. A whole lot of stuff. And Marshall Sportiest, the parody of it's Cillian Space. Another version of it with Bullshido, Bulquando spoof stuff about an evil master and their students who are running around doing stuff. It's funny. Yeah, it's considerably changed from what it was based on. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like she's a Borg or something, or a queen, or, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, Picard. Yeah, I rambled on about my own stuff because, sure, why not? This is sort of a live blog, sort of my live stream thoughts on this. I just ramble on. Yeah, anyway.